Oliver. There is myself. Hello, Oliver. And welcome back to the Project Management Podcast.
Hi, Cornelius. Great to be here.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know Oliver, he is a project management practitioner and trainer from Munich, Bavaria, Germany. And after 13 years of doing project management, also project business management, with a focus on the automotive industry, he started his own business as a trainer in 1995. And today he helps corporations to be more successful in project business, high risk business for both customers and project managers. Since 2002, he has volunteered for PMI, Project Management Institute, and since 2019, he is in fact the president of the Project Business Foundation. And you can find the Project Business Foundation at projectbusiness.org. Oliver, tell me, how did this presentation, before we get going, how did this presentation about projects as profit centers actually start?
That's a good point. We have a shortage in project management on materials and understanding of projects when they are profit centers, and that's not a rare thing. That's a very common thing. You have one organization acting as a contractor for another organization, and this was the starting point also of the Project Business Foundation. When we saw, it means me and some friends and enthusiasts in the field, we found out somehow this is missing in the entire project management discipline, to talk about those project managers, those organizations that are not doing projects for strategic goals and big new product and service developments and so on. No, they bring money home with these projects. They are contractors. And this is how it started. What does it really mean to work for such an organization? If you do that, what are the changes for you? What are the things that you need to do differently now? And the skills that you need in this business, which are really different from the skills in internal projects. And that's how we started the whole thing. And by the way, I have a second slide set we won't show it today, but I have a slide set where we talk about the customer side, because a lot of things change on the customer side as well when you do projects not with internal people, but when you buy them from outside. Yeah. So, but our focus today is the contractor side.
All right. Thank you very much. And right now, we are going to go and continue. I will bring up Oliver's presentation in just a moment, but for those of you who are joining us live here today, please, if you have any questions, there is a chat function both in Facebook and YouTube. Please do make use of it. And I will interrupt Oliver. He said, yes, please do interrupt me, makes things more lively. And I'm now handing things over to you, Oliver. And thank you very much for being here with us today. Let me remove the logo here as well, so that is not so dominant there at the top. There we go. Oliver, thank you for joining us today. It's your show.
Thank you very much. Now my logo is the dominant one. So it's about projects as profit centers. What is different for a project manager when projects are done for paying customer? It really changes a lot in the industry. Here again, some things about me. We don't want to spend too much time here, but I hold a Master of Science in Project Management. I'm PMP. Of course, I've been PMP certified for more than 20 years now. And I've been volunteer, active member at PMI, Project Management Institute, for, again, over 20 years now. And I'm actually, I'm at the time now being active at the Project Business Foundation, but I'm still also in PMI. I do some volunteering for PMI in their educational field, but my real focus is now the Project Business Foundation, where we talk about different things in project management, things that should be discussed far more often here. A bit about my publications. I have 2 books, and one obviously is about project business management. I think it's the first book that really looks at that as a business from both sides, looks what we can do better to have better projects when the project is cross-functional, when you're not doing the project inside one organization, but you break through the walls of an organization and bring other organizations in, contractors, subcontractors, and so on. This changes a lot. And I have over 30 papers out on the topic. So really a lot of stuff out there mostly on the topic of project business management. This is the contents for today. For me, it's evening. For you, depending on where you are in the world, it may be morning. We do the walk from internal projects to customer-facing projects, try to understand what is the main point of concern in internal projects and how does this change when you go to customer-facing projects. By the way, customer-facing project is the same here as customer project. Meanwhile, I really prefer customer project. It's not just what faces to. It's not the direction of the face. It is a different kind of project that we do here. What are the challenges in this specific kind of project? And I will give you one solution for these challenges, something that can be very helpful, that can be very, very strong. We will talk about benefit engineering, a topic that a method that can help your project out of crisis where necessary. And of course, I'm happy to answer your questions here. So the first thing is from internal projects to customer-facing projects. And I'd like to introduce you to Clara Loft. Clara Loft, a project manager, obviously, and a pretty normal project manager, I would normally say. But hey, she knows the value of her work. This is something that doesn't go without saying. This is something special for many project managers. Many of them do not know the value of their work, and their organizations don't either. So she knows what her job is worth, and she is very, very good in internal projects. That's what she learned, and what she is very good in, implementing strategic initiatives. I had a long training day behind me already. Strategic initiatives is one thing that she does. Change to the organization, new products, new services. She builds teams across the organization, and she delivers on time. Hey, that's a great thing. Her home world is the world of the internal project, the cross-functional project. Let's understand what this means. To understand what it means and what the main challenge is in internal projects, we have to look at something which is called the matrix. It's described in the PMBOK guide, by the way. Yeah, but we are missing a bit the elaboration on that because it's a big topic when you are in internal projects. So let's have a brief look into that, what it means. I have a functional organization here. We have division, some say line organization, with a division manager on top and some department manager. And in these departments, we have between 3 and 6 people as department employees. With a lot of care, with a lot of carefulness, we can make a first assumption. It's a valid assumption to assume that department manager 4 is more powerful than department manager 3. There are more influencing factors, but one very strong influencing factor in a line organization for the power and influence of a manager, a line manager, is the span of control. The number of people that this person manages, and in our example here, department manager 4 has twice as many employees as department manager 3. There are many things that come with that. One thing is budget, of course. Department manager 4 probably has more budget, maybe has a stronger participation in the value creation in the organization, is a bigger part of the value stream that finally keeps this organization alive and liquid, of course, because they make money on that. So there are several reasons that make me assume that department manager is the stronger one of the two. By the way, there's one more. Grapevine radio. Rumors in the organization. Department manager 4 has 6 pairs of ears and 6 pairs of eyes in the organization that can tell the department manager if some rumors are running around. It may take department manager 3 a bit longer to hear about these rumors, because only 3 pairs of eyes and 3 pairs of ears in the grapevine radio. And the other thing is also, if you want to spread rumors, department manager 4 can tell one of the employees, hey, I have to tell you something, but don't tell anyone else, please. But this has just happened. It's incredible. And the employee thinks, no, I shouldn't tell it anybody, maybe except my best friend and colleague, 4.2. And so this goes on. And that's how you spread rumors in organization. And with 6 employees, this is much easier than with 3 employees, of course. So it's also soft factors that play a role here. This understanding is not complete. I have to agree to that. If sometimes people say, hey, it's not always the case. They are right. It's not always the case. There are other important factors. I think the most important factor is corporate culture. What is the culture in the organization? Another factor is what kind of employees do they have? Are these employees rather well-educated, well-trained, or is it just cheap workers, or what is it here? But generally, that's a strong factor. How many people does a department manager actually manage? Now, this has a corollary. The corollary is a department manager. How will the department manager respond if only temporarily, maybe, one or more employees are taken out of the department to work in a project? And precisely this is what we see now here happen. We have a project here which is cross-functional. This is a matrix organization because it has 2 overlapping structures. We have on one side the departments. These are the columns here. And then we have across these columns our project, which takes the team leads, team members, and maybe some more from the different departments in here. A typical problem in such a situation is that all these team members now are servants of 2 masters. Have a look at team member 4, for instance, here. Team member 4 is a person one side subordinate to the project, but to the project manager. But on the other side, this person is also a member of department 4. So what if there comes some direction from the project manager and from the department manager, and they run into conflict with each other? Let me give you a simple example. I'm sure most of you would love to spend a week in Hawaii to work on a project. And my project manager, the guy on the left-hand side here, needs someone to go to Hawaii and spend some time there for this project, 5 days maybe. Project manager speaks with team member 4 and says, hey, I need you in Hawaii 5 days. Team member 4 thinks, yeah, Hawaii, wonderful. Project manager says, okay, book a flight, book a hotel. Oh, in Hawaii, you will need a rental car. Yeah, book a rental car. At one point in time, the department manager hears about that and says, hey, hang on, my employee is planning to fly to Hawaii and spend their 5 days in Hawaii. No, I won't allow that. It's still my employee. I'm still the boss of this person, and I say no. So what is this team member 4 now going to do? The project manager says, fly to Hawaii. The department manager says, you stay here. And in many, many organizations, the outcome of this conflict will be our team member 4 will stay here, will stick with the department manager, and all the joy is gone again. What we just described has a name, also in the PMBOK guide, by the way. It's called a weak matrix. Weak from the point of view of the project manager. Project manager is rather in a weak position. Often they're not even called project managers. They are called coordinator. This is to signal the line managers, you are in charge. You are still the bosses here. This is just a coordinator, not even a manager. Project manager, project management team are typically assigned part-time to projects in a weak matrix. I had recently a case in a company in chemistry where 15 million euro, I think that's $18 million, so something like that, such a project had to be done by a project manager part-time. The person was expected to do other things at the same time. $18 million, that's incredible. And the project had huge problems because the project manager did not have enough time to take care of the project, to pay attention to the project, to be there when things go wrong. Often in a weak matrix, project managers have no own budget. If there is a budget there at all, it's a function manager who manages that. It could be a project sponsor, it could be another functional manager. And also things like staffing. We need to recruit people, procurement. We need to buy something from outside. The project managers cannot even do that. The functional organization has departments that take these jobs. So they have an HR department, they have a purchasing department, and they take care for that, whether they will hire the right people, get the right contractors on board, and these things, I'm uncertain. Resource availability, low and unreliable. My example with Hawaii, this guy, this project manager may now go to other departments. Like, do you have someone for me to go to Hawaii? And they all say, no, we won't give someone away. And even if someone says yes, early in the project, later, when this flight really is about to happen, it could still be that the line manager says, no, just changed my mind on that. My employee stays here. Yeah, doesn't fly to Hawaii, and this leads to a rather poor reputation of the project manager. Too often in these situations, they have difficulties to meet their schedule goals, deadlines, to stay inside budget, and to deliver what is expected. Weak matrix is not a nice situation to work in, and most project managers in internal projects have to do that. Could there also be a strong matrix somewhere? Pimbo Guy talks about that, and yes, can happen. A good example is customer projects. Customer projects typically have a real project manager. Sometimes the person is referred to as program manager, not because this is a program. This is because the customer should have the feeling, oh, I get a very special, high-level, senior-level project manager, program manager, not just the coordinator. Then the project manager, the project management team in comparatively small projects is already full-time. This is the way how this organization makes money. These people bring money home. So you don't want things to go wrong because project managers have a conflict of different tasks and have to share their time with other activities. No, they should fully focus on the project and bring money home for the project. They have their own budget. Think of a fixed price project. Budgeting is very, very simple in a fixed price project. The customer is prepared to pay us $10 million. We would like to keep $2 million as the margin from the project. We have some risks, we have a lot of work, we would like to have some profit as well. So we need a margin from this project. 10 million is what the customer is paying. We keep 2 million. 8 million is the budget for the project manager and for the project. Very simple. Works with all contract types. Staffing, procurement, often done really by the project manager. You don't want another department interfering here and making it difficult for project managers to bring money home. They should do everything that is necessary to make the customer happy, bring money home. And by the way, bring it home soon. That's another thing. Liquidity is a topic. Resource availability, very high. If the project manager is in a customer project and says someone has to fly to Hawaii, it goes without saying that someone flies to Hawaii. 2 reasons. Reason number 1, we want to send invoices to the customer. If we don't do our job, we cannot invoice this work. So of course someone flies there. There's a second reason, by the way, we work under contract. Most organizations, unfortunately not all, but most organizations hate being in breach of contract. They don't want to be in breach of contract. So we have a contractual obligation to make sure that the project is done right And if this flight to Hawaii, if these 5 days in Hawaii contribute to that, then of course, then it goes without saying that we do that. And all these different situations here that we see, the different situation with the many aspects that we see here, lead to a higher reputation of the project manager, because the project manager is in a better situation to deliver on time, on budget, and what was really ordered there.
Quick question for you, Oliver.
Yes, please.
So we looked at weak matrix, strong matrix on one side, and we said, in most cases, strong matrix, that's where you want to go if you have a customer project. Have you ever had a situation where a customer project was run in a weak matrix environment?
Yes.
And how did that go?
The majority is strong matrix. One reason
why that makes total sense, yeah.
Yeah, but there are some exceptions. One big exception, by the way, very large organizations. If your project is not just one customer project that is so important for the organization has 100, 200, 300 customer projects at a time, then the customer is no more king in this situation. The customer is the customer in the waiting line of a supermarket. And if the supermarket thinks, hey, we don't want this customer anymore, then they kick the customer out. You're a very, very small number there. And actually, the problem there is not so much the competition between projects and line organization. There is another competition than there between project and another project and another project. They all use the same resources, and you can be very weak in such a situation as well. And another influencing factor always here is, again, corporate culture. Corporate culture may even make a customer project where everyone would say, hey, it must be in a strong matrix. They earn their money with that. This is their income for the organization. Even there, it could be that they become very weak because the organization is built like that. You also have some internal projects that can be very, very strong when they go against legal deadlines. I was 16 years ago, I was at SAP, and they had to become Sarbanes-Oxley compliant. If someone
I was there as well,
the legislation to protect the shareholders in U.S. listed in organizations that are listed on the U.S. stock exchange. I think SAP is New York Stock Exchange, so they had to do that as well. And their CFO said, I don't want to go to jail. We have some projects here, and they are very, very powerful because I don't want to go to jail. So these were some of the most powerful internal projects that I ever see. But these are exceptions. That's not the rule.
Right.
The rule
Let me bring up this one here. Sorry, just to remind everybody, you do have a chat function. Hello, Hugh, who's watching us from San Diego, California. Please do interrupt us, and please do type your question into the chat so Oliver can answer. Sorry, Oliver, I interrupted you.
No problem. I love that.
But you brought up the balanced matrix, so let's take a look at how that goes there in the center.
Actually, what we just saw is a very unfair thing. I just go back. Very unfair thing for this team member 4, employee 4.4, because whatever this guy is doing, he will frustrate someone. He will either frustrate the project manager or the department manager. Normally, employees in an organization are hired to do their work and not to frustrate people. But whatever the person does, someone will be frustrated. And that's not something you should do with your employees. So a way out of such a dilemma situation for this person is the balanced matrix, where the project manager and the line manager sit together and discuss the situation. And I would recommend that our team member, our employee, is also part of this meeting, so that the person can talk about things he likes and dislikes and bring up concerns and so on. It should be part of the discussion, but is not left alone with this situation. And that's where we've common for internal and customer projects. We talked about this already. And this is the situation where our Lara Croft is very, very good. She learned to navigate inside the organization like a fish in the water. I stole this, to be honest, from Mao Zedong, who said a revolutionary has to swim in the people like a fish in the water. And I think project managers are sometimes some kind of revolutionaries. So the same is true for project managers. She has stakeholder orientation. She has servant leadership, all these things that we hold so high at the moment. She can be very, very persuasive. And that's an important thing because she doesn't have formal power. So she needs her persuasiveness, social skills, self-control, emotional intelligence, all those things. Unfortunately, there was a moment that this did not help her anymore. Her company made a decision to fire her despite all the things she can do, all her skills, all her capabilities, all the understanding that she has. And the reason was the project has been outsourced to an external provider. Someone will have to take care for this external provider, but you don't need a full-time project manager anymore for that. So someone else in the organization should do that. All her skills, knowledge, behavior, all the things that she had did no more help her. And she wondered, hey, how can this happen? She felt redundant. And she was redundant, of course. She was made redundant here. She was thinking about the situation. More project managers are hired today for customer projects than for internal projects. We will see some numbers later. So what if I change the side? Bringing money home with project, can it be that difficult? That's what she thinks. I have some numbers on that. Maybe the most interesting survey that I ever had is this one. I had 590 responses 3.5 years ago, where I asked people, what is the trend in your organization in make or buy decisions? Is the trend more towards make or more towards buy? If the trend is more towards make, then we would have more internal projects in the future. If the trend goes towards buy, then we will have more project business in the future. Then you see it is very, very strong here. There's an overweight on the right-hand side. That's the buy side. The green columns stand for experience of the recent past, and the red columns stand for expectations for the future. And on both sides, there's an overweight on the right-hand side. More people say we are buying more than we did in the past, and I believe it will be even more in the future. Then on the other side, we take it all back. We want to make it ourselves. Of course, this strategy is also out there and can be a good strategy, but we see the majority is going the other way. There is an expectation that projects may run better if you do them the cross-corporate way than just the cross-functional way. By the way, if you're interested in the average numbers, it is a +1 for the green, no, +1.3 for the green bars and a +1 for the red bars here. The participants had 3 steps on the buy side, 3 steps on the make side, and most of them went to number 2. This is where we have a majority here. Choose buy between very, very strong and somewhat a strong tendency towards buy. So that's the market of project business management. Clara came to a decision. If this is the trend, then I want to be part of this trend. I want to work for a contractor, and I want to do a project as a profit center. For a contractor, it's a profit center. She was looking for a new job and found one, and she got a new project assignment there. And a lot of things changed for her, and she was not really prepared for that. She did not expect the new challenges that come upon her. The most important one is now she has to take care of 2 organizations, not just one. She has to take care of the customer and of the contractor. The contractor is her employer. So if there is a real conflict of interest, her side should be on the contractor side, of course, but she has to take care of the customer because one of the big goals is to make the customer happy. Clara had to bridge disputes between the companies, and there is a lot that can happen there. They may have different commercial interests. Cultures can play a big role again. processes and tools in use? Whose templates are we using? Whose forms? Whose checklists? Whose software? One company may use this software, the other company another one. So which software are we going to use? The company that accepts that the other company's software is being in use will have to learn maybe new software here. Communication styles may vary. Data protection, security. We have an interface between organizations. This does not, we do not want this to become a weak spot here. And another thing is big egos. On both sides, you may have managers. And what happens if these egos, these big managers, if they clash, if they have difficulties to find joint solution there? And it's not really unlikely. I saw it happen. Legal terms is the next thing. She was not prepared for these big numbers of terms that you see here. By the way, the Project Business Foundation has a glossary online. It is free. Everyone can access it. It's totally open. You can immediately use it, and you can make sure that you use terminology as you should use that. Which project manager knows really what a pitch is, what liquidated damages are, and so on. Privity of contracts. Never heard of that. Benefit engineering. And she had to be careful because there is a worst case here. A worst case scenario in a customer project is it could lead to a lawsuit. It could end at court. And the end at court is something we try to avoid, of course, but we must accept that this is part of what we are doing. The possibility that this ends at court is a big threat over all parties involved. She spoke to her new boss, of course. You want me to bring money home with projects? I need help. I can't do that alone. I never learned that. I learned project management, but I didn't learn how to run a project as a profit center. Later in my presentation, we'll go on with her story. For the moment, we have a little excerpt and talk about the special challenges when we do projects as businesses. By the way, we have challenges on both sides, also on customer side, but our focus here is the contractor side. Here are the three big goals that both sides have in here. The customer outsources project work to make sure, and in the expectation and in the hope, not to make sure, in the hope to get reliable vendor performance, someone I can rely on, maybe even more than on own people. Then a customer wants VIP grade service. You don't want to stand in a waiting line. You don't want to hear all the time, yeah, we have to do some work for you, but we are just finishing work for another customer. And oh, by the way, there is another one in front of you. You are number 3 now, and as soon as we are ready for you, we will do the business. We will do the job for you. That's not what they want. And what they want is supply network agility. It can be very tricky and very difficult to bring changes into a project when you have contract partners and they all have to agree to the change and do something then differently. They may say no to that. If you have a project with 5, 6 contractors and one of them says no to a change, this may make that change impossible. No, you want agility there. You want them to make quick changes when you need these quick changes. And of course, you have to pay for that, but that's an expectation that you have. On contractor side, we also have some big goals. The first big goal, of course, is the happy customer. The happy customer protects our future. We may become an incumbent contractor there. So the next business, winning the next business, will be much, much easier than the last one because we don't have to fight against so much competition here. We are already there and they know us, they trust us, hopefully. Then, of course, we need a profitable project. The reason is quite simple. We cannot do too many loss-bringing projects. I asked repeatedly organizations that live on customer projects, where this is their income. This is the point where they make money and keep the company alive. Ask them, how many loss-bringing projects could you afford? And a typical number is 10%. 1 out of 10 projects could be loss bringers. That's something they would survive. 2 out of 10 would already be too much for them. They may no more be able to survive. And then there's another one, that's liquidity. It has to do with our cash flow. It is very normal in a customer project that the contractor lays out money for the customer, that to some degree you finance your customer's project. But there are limitations. How much can you really afford? You lay out money, you do work today, and then you have to invoice it, and then you have to wait until this money comes in. And some customers are very, very creative in finding reasons to delay the payment even further and further. At one point in time, our liquidity will become difficult and turn into a problem for us. Companies go bankrupt because of a lack of profitability. Companies go much faster into illiquidity when this cash flow is not protected. So that's even a faster way into bankruptcy for a customer. So we have to take care of liquidity as well. How much can we really afford to go into outlays for our customer? These three things are important. And maybe project managers have somewhat learned how to have a happy customer, but profitability, liquidity, legal questions, all these things are not really discussed in project management. And more than 50% of project managers have to deal with that. That's what we see here. 3 surveys that I did in 2015, 18, 2019. I may repeat it sometime. And ask people, what is your type of project that you're currently managing? Is it a customer project? That's the red part here. Or is it an internal project? That's the blue part. And let's simplify it. 50%, maybe a bit more, of the project managers are in customer projects. We're not talking about a fringe group here. We are not talking about a tiny minority and some project managers inside this huge community and so on. No, we are at least half of the project managers. I think we are more than that. More than 50% of our project managers are in customer projects. This is not a small aspect of project management. It is a huge aspect of project management. Have a look into the PMBOK guide. Do you find it in the PMBOK guide? There is one short statement where this is mentioned, process 4.1, that's develop project charter. There it says about inputs of this project, talks about contracts for a customer project. This is the starting document. And by the way, it's the most important document for the contractor. That's the only place where this is really mentioned. Otherwise, the PMBOK guide completely ignores that. Ignores 50%, maybe more than 50% of project managers. How can we do that? This is a signal for customer projects. We saw in the previous survey, more procurement is done by customers. Yeah, we see that more project managers are now in customer projects. So what we have here is a healthy market, but it's not a safe bank. It's a healthy market, but it is a high-risk market.
And I can also confirm this. We did a survey also on the Project Management podcast with our listeners, and the numbers that we saw, this, Oliver, they were roughly the same. So this is, everybody who does this survey, you will end up with the same numbers, with the same results.
Yeah. Depending on the group you're dealing with, sometimes some group may be larger, sometimes the other one. I think if I would do this today, I have a lot of people who are my contacts because they are interested in project business. So today the number may be even higher, but there is some bias in, and the bias is me actually and my network. But apart from that, it's a big group. We are not talking about a fringe topic. We're talking about a core topic of project management, completely ignored by PMI, by IPMA, by all others. No one looks at that. That's why we founded the Project Business Foundation. We need someone to talk about that and to help people in such a situation, help organizations. Here's the next thing. Differences commonly observable. Formulated a bit carefully, of course. It's not always 100% true, but very, very often you see that. And the biggest difference here, an internal project is typically a cost center inside the performing organization. A customer project is a profit center. Not all of them. I have to add this. There are some other examples where even the customer project is not a profit center, but they are rare exceptions. The majority are just profit centers. When things go wrong, this may end at court. Yeah? What we have to bring home as project managers in customer projects is income, not just deliverables and change. We have to bring money home. Yeah, and this was too fast. I don't know if Facebook and your system is moving this nicely, maybe in little steps, yeah. But we see this list goes on at the bottom. There is so much, there's so many differences. There is so much that we have to learn when we do that, when we come from the internal project to be prepared for the customer project. One interesting thing, and that's a thing that I like very much to see here in internal projects, the typical reputation of project managers is rather low because it's weak matrix. It brings project managers' reputation really down. Here it's rather high because we are rather a strong matrix. So if you feel unhappy in the weak matrix and say, hey, I have so many good ideas and so many good decisions to make, but I'm not in a position to do that, maybe that's a good point to come to the world of customer projects. Your opinion and your decisions have another weight there.
And you know, Oliver, I think the important thing to note about these differences is, as a project manager, nobody prepares you for this.
Yes.
When I started my first customer project, I had no idea what I was getting into. Yes. Right? I was like your Clara Loft, nice name of choice of name, by the way. I know exactly what you did there, but I had no idea what I was getting myself into and how I was going to be challenged on two sides suddenly by the customer who wants me to deliver a superb project, and by my own company who says, well, you got to make money out of this first and foremost, right? Yeah. Rich Maltzman, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi, Rich. Great to see you.
Pay attention to these two experts. Outstanding. Yes, I'm standing right now as I'm saying this. Thank you very much, Rich, for noticing. Yes. All right. Back to you, Oliver.
Great to see you, Rich. Yeah. Actually, one of my first customer projects was a long time ago. Engineering project for BMW, and we were the contractor, and we had subcontractors. And I was very young, and I was also completely unprepared for this project. And the project manager on BMW's side, so at one point, took me at the side, very private, and said, "Mr. Lehmann, the most important thing, look at the interfaces. You will have different companies now working for you, and you work for us at BMW. Take care of the interfaces. That's where these projects run into troubles." And I was young, and I thought, yeah, nice advice. Yeah, okay, of course, yeah. Interfaces. Today, I know how right this man was, and what a very good advice this was. The problems do not happen inside the organizations; they happen between the organizations. Yeah. And one reason why this happens is something like here. I was in exactly the same situation. It's not just one customer, one contractor. If you have such a situation, from time to time we buy something. That's the procurement section of the PMBOK guide describes this quite good. Yeah, no big criticism on that. But that's not what we have typically. By the way, in automotive, there's an old term for that. This is the extended workbench. You normally do things internally. From time to time, you buy something from outside because you can justify that. You have to justify, as a project manager, if you buy something from outside. Our situation that we have in many organizations today is not this extended workbench. It is complex project supply networks. We have the buyer. I talked about such a case. We have a seller, a contractor. Meanwhile, at the moment that the contract is there, the seller becomes the contractor in here. I have another one. And this seller is interesting because it's not just the contractor. It's a prime contractor. This contractor has subcontractors, and they may have sub-subcontractors and so on. So we have now one project with already here 6 companies involved, and there may be more than that. we see one direction is how the deliverables will flow. The sellers will sell their deliverables to the prime contractor, and the prime contractor will resell them to the buyer. But in the other way, we have the flow of money in here, and we have lots of contracts in here. That's the challenge with the agility, by the way. It may impact, a change request may impact many contracts, so you have to take care what happens in all these relationships. Another interesting thing is with this company here, seller and buyer at the same time. A prime contractor is a contractor to the customer, but at the same time, the prime contractor is the customer of the subcontractors. And they may have sub-subcontractors again. They may be in the same situation again. So we have a level of complexity in here that has so far not been described. No one takes care of that. The PMBOK guide definitively does not take care of that, does not describe project supply networks as we see it here. I think we should do them as well. We should engineer them as well as production people do, as service people do. They have discipline for that. Supply chain management, education, literature, certifications, everything. What do we have? One book by Oliver Lehmann, and that's it. Right. Then another thing. Let's talk about these interfaces and have a closer look at these interfaces. In a survey that I made some years ago, 302 responses. What are the most frequent causes of conflicts in these project supply networks between the parties at these interfaces? And you see the first thing is conflicting business interests. People had a scale from 0 to 5, yeah? And this is almost at 3. This was the longest bar in here. And actually from hindsight, this is natural. And if I think back into my experience, into the years when I was in this business as well, this is precisely what I saw. The majority of conflicts were caused by different business interests. One organization wants this, the other one wants that. Interesting, the next two, almost identical, a very, very small difference only. Diversity of cultures, legal systems. The parties don't understand each other. I recently had such an example where a German company, a software provider, works for an Arabic customer, and they had so many misunderstandings because the Germans did not understand the Arabic culture and the Arabs did not understand the German culture. At the moment when we clarified that, the world became immediately much, much easier because they could talk about that without allegations, without bad spirit. They could talk openly about that, and this helped really resolve the problem. Then the egos. Blue is an organizational bar. Yellow here is an individual bar. We have individuals that don't come together with distrust and with struggle and with quarrels and everything. And then some more. Interesting, by the way, one down here. It's not that common as the other ones. Where is it? Here. Dubious organizations, bribery. Yeah. One of the things we have to look at is matters of corruption also, because this is the dark part, that's the dark side of the force, if you like, of project business management. There is a lot of corruption in certain industries, in certain countries, not everywhere, but we have to take care of this as well. This is an area where corruption has a fertile ground, much, much easier than in operational business. Operational business goes over a long time. The risk is very high to be found and bribery to be opened up. But in projects, you can hide things very easily, much, much easier than in other businesses. Let's briefly talk about these different business interests. Here's an example for that. If we have an internal project, for instance, for the customer in the project, it is still an internal project. They want to have the results. Benefit realization is typically in the future. You see in my first example in here, there's a delivery moment. Left from the delivery is the project. Right from the delivery is operations that use the results of the project. This is a single delivery. think of a bridge. On the left-hand side, the bridge is built, then it's handed over to traffic. And on the right-hand side, we have business realization. By the way, that's what you find in literature on topics such as financial calculations and investment calculations for projects. They always describe this model. It is existing, of course, but I think it has become comparatively rare. A bigger number of projects today have staged deliveries, incremental deliveries, where you begin with a small one and you have one more, you have one more, you have one more. There's even a bridge built like that. The Mario Cuomo Bridge north of New York was built like that. They built a bridge with 2 spans. They first gave one span to traffic, had both directions on the same span, on the same piece of bridge, if you like, and then they built a second span south of that. And when the second span was finished, they separated the traffic, and now one direction goes over the south span, the other direction goes over the north span. So they had incremental delivery for bridge building. I always thought it's possible. For me, bridges were the standard example of a project where you can have only one delivery. You cannot hand over a half-finished bridge. You can. I was wrong. I stand corrected here. Right. So internal projects. But now look at the contractor. The contractor has a totally different way to realize benefits, at least monetary benefits from the project. They begin with the first payment from the customer, and they end with the last payment from the customer. And the last payment may be before the project has been finished. Sometimes it's a bit after that, but not too long after that. And when the last payment is done, the contractor will no more realize any benefit from that. It's over. It's done. So the contractor has this time available to bring money home and to realize benefits for the own organization. For the customer, benefit realization is totally or mostly in the future. For the contractor, it's right now, here and there. There is no future for benefit realization. There may be another project then that we have, but benefit realization is today. This is one of the big differences between those two sides.
Oliver, before we move on, let me just quickly bring up, we don't have any questions, but we have 2 comments. One from Alma, who says, very interesting theme, thank you. And then Carol Ann joins us from Ontario, Canada. She basically says the same thing. Thank you for giving a voice to the insights so many of us has gleaned from our experiences and from our work environment. Kudos, yes. And I can tell you, as literally 2.5 hours ago, so that means 2 hours before we started recording this episode, I was on a kickoff meeting for a project. We are the customer, and we have an external service provider. And this brings it for me now into the perspective as well. When I looked at the previous slide, I saw, we have incremental delivery. Our benefits begin there, and then I realized at the bottom, oh yeah, of course, for our contractor, the benefits realization ends the moment our project goes live, because that's their end of the project. But it's only the beginning of the benefits realization for us. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for showing that. Yeah.
And what we are discussing here, nothing is really new. It has been around for centuries, maybe. I don't think that anything is new. The only new thing is that someone talks about it publicly, and that someone does some research in that, and that we have an association now for that, the Project Business Foundation, and that we have you who is interested in that, and the audience here. This is new. The topic as such is not new. It has been around for a long time. I sometimes say for 4,700 years, because this was the time when money was invented. I think the prerequisite was the invention of money 4,700 years ago. But as soon as money was there, they could do project business. Another challenge that we have has to do with our most common process that we have in here. Again, common. It doesn't say it's always that way. It's a very common way. The process begins on buyer side. The buyer is still no customer. The buyer is just a company that makes a make or buy decision, says, okay, let's buy this thing, as you did probably as well. and then you send out some requests for proposals, invitation for bids, request for quotations, and so on, maybe with an SOW, that's a statement of work, which describes the project more in detail, and there may be more than that, what you want on offer from vendors, so that you can select one of them and turn this vendor into a contractor. Now this arrives at vendors, they have to make a decision as well, therefore no offer decision. When they say, no, we won't make an offer, they should do this more often. Sorry, that's one of the mistakes here. They do, and they make always an offer when they get an inquiry, whether they can do it or not. It's another mistake. But now they do an offer. What we see is now business development. One thing I would like to change here, meanwhile, it's also business development from the customer side. Business development happens from both sides here. Acquisition of a contractor is also a form of business development. So with all these processes, at the end, we have a contract. The interesting thing with a contract is the customer here wants to have some competition to get a good price, good service for the money, everything. So we have 3 sellers in here. But when the contract has been signed, it is very likely that 2 of them will go home with empty hands. Hence, they have nothing, but they may have invested a lot into this business, and all this investment is gone at that point in time. So we have 3 here. Now 1 is left, and now we have the project. From a customer perspective, the most important thing is contract management. We ordered something under contract, so we want to make sure that we get from the contractor what we ordered and what we are prepared to pay for. It includes things like change request management and acceptance tests and all those things. At one point in time, this is all done. The project contract will be closed out. The project will be finished. There may be some future business with service of deliverables. Also, the customer may have to pay for that in the future. And there are some other models that we have where this is actually another piece of business here. But in our little example here, the project as such is over. When the project contract is closed out, this means that the project has been closed out as well. We have a fundamental challenge in here. While we do this business development, most organizations will say you have to focus on competing. You want the sellers to compete with each other so that you get the best offer. The buyer is competing with the sellers. I want as much delivery as possible for as few money as possible. And of course, the sellers have the opposite interest. So we have a multilateral competition situation here. Everybody involved is somehow in a competitive situation. I'm not saying that this is good and this is right. I'm saying this is happening. When we have the contract, then we have to change our behavior by 180%. In a fraction of a second, we have to focus from competing to completing. If the 2 parties go on competing, then this project will probably fail. If you have competing parties in a project, they will likely destroy the entire project, at least damage it very much. We have to focus on completing. So focus on completing is what we need now. Completing instead of competing here. How quick are organizations able to change their behavior, change their attitude towards other organizations, change from competing to completing? And by the way, it's even more complex in reality. We have some projects where we're just in a business development phase. We have some other projects which are just in a delivery phase, in a completing phase here. So you are in a meeting with future contractors, and you are very competitive. You're leaving the meeting, go through the door, go through the next door, down the hallway, 4th door on the left-hand side is the next meeting room, and that's the place where you talk with a company that is already your contractor. And you have to completely change your behavior. And the same is true for the sellers, of course. How good are people in doing that, in changing their behavior that quickly without getting unauthentic and just playing? And so that's a big challenge.
Mm-hmm. Oliver, allow me to interrupt you again with a comment. This time it is coming from Rich Maltzman again. He says, you are giving the voice of the ideas of project value. So that's what he says. And he's teaching something very similar at the Boston University Metropolitan College, including sustainability there. So people are liking what you're doing.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. We want a project together. That's the thing that brings value. And the more we are competing, the less the project will be able to bring this value. And it must be value for all parties involved, of course. Mm-hmm. The next thing, I talked about this already. This is a typical supply chain in manufacturing, for instance. My home industry was automotive, and I remember when this all started 30 years ago, it started, and there were some influencing factors there. ISO 9000 was an important influencing factor. EDI, companies could exchange data with each other and become active based on data, not just on a phone call or on a letter. And third aspect was very insightful and very, very visionary people who said we have to do it differently. We have to make our cars in a different way, but we have to bring organizations together, which was a very, very difficult task. It started 30 years ago, and today I think it is a standing discipline and has everything that you want to have in such a discipline, with education, standards, certifications of people, and literature, and everything you need. Everything is there. Now, if you look at our situation, we have a much less orderly, and much less static also. It's much more dynamic supply network here. And these supply networks are so hard to order. And most organizations don't really know who is all there. It could well be for this contractor down here. This is the maybe this one here. No direct contact with the customer. Yeah, this may be the direct competitor of the customer, is in a situation down here to see what this customer is doing, to collect some know-how from this customer. And the customer doesn't even know that the company is there, because there is no direct contact with this subcontractor and this customer. Here's a contractor on one line, on one delivery line. It is a direct contractor of the customer, first tier. Here's a second line where this contractor is second tier. First tier here, second tier. We can't even say for sure where is this contractor's place in the system. You would never do this in a supply chain. You know very clearly who is at what tier. That's very important to them. We have these complex networks where we don't even know that. And then we have things like a consortium in here. A consortium is a temporary joint venture. These three contractors that are part of the consortium, they have made a new company together, and the company will possibly end its existence when the project of the customer is over. The consortium is there just for the sake of the project, and may be dissolved when all work has been done and all obligations have been met, sometimes much earlier, by the way. So we are in a much more complex situation. And where is science? Where are the scientists who give us the insights into this very complex world, how to behave in that? We will know it's full of risks. It is high-risk business for all parties involved. So I would expect, at least from science, to help us better understand these risks. Science doesn't do that. It's not there. It's silent on the whole topic. The same is true, by the way, for trainers. I do training in that. I'm a single person. There should be thousands of trainers around to help organizations. Do we have consultants who focus on that topic? If a company that is a contractor in such a supply network, if this company needs external help, a consultant, they don't find anyone. All the big consultancies are not there. They are still not there. And the last thing about education, what education do we have? Some people in customer projects have zero education. If I go back in my professional life, 35 years, when I had my first customer projects, that's precisely where I was. I had neither education in project management nor in business management. By the way, I got first an education in business management and later in project management. Also interesting. So meanwhile, it has changed. But when I did my first projects, nothing there. And it's still the same. And then we have people who have project management education. They have to learn more about business management. We have people who have business management education, and now they should do project business. They need project management knowledge here. And there's a lot down there what they have to take care of. At the Project Business Foundation, now we have 3 main topics. We identified 3 main topics here. One thing is relationship management, cross-corporate relation management, of course. The second one is commercial questions, such as profitability, cash flow, liquidity. We have a profit center, so we must be able to care for that. And the third thing is legal understanding. There is not much legal understanding for projects, and projects contract management and legal contract management for projects is different to contract management when you buy a car. Also, when you buy a book in a bookstore, you have different laws or different ways how these laws apply. So what do people do? They learn by trial and error. We have a problem with trial and error in project business management. Trial in customer projects is very, very expensive, and error is even more expensive here. So this is a very, very expensive way for people to learn how to do that, and it's particularly expensive, of course, for the corporations involved. And this is the argument that.
May I interrupt you before you move on, Oliver? Because we have
Yes.
one question from Gino Evero, asks, how has COVID-19 affected these matrices, and how would a project manager be generally affected? Have you noticed anything that these complex supply networks have been affected?
We had yes, first of all, yes, we have. We had a survey done in 2020, June 2020, almost a year ago now. We have to repeat this. We did it together with PMI, by the way, in cooperation with PMI. And we had a survey where we asked people, is your project business affected by COVID-19? In June, it was 80% who said it affects their business more or less. Some said it's a small effect, something it's a large effect, but it was only 20% who had no effect at all from COVID. One big question that I have, and that will be an element of our next surveys that we are going to do. One question that I have is this trend towards project business. Is this rather unaffected, or is it increased? Is it accelerated through that? Is it slowing down through COVID? My impression, that's not based on numbers, that's just the impression that I have, it gets accelerated. It's really a driving force here. And the number of project managers in customer projects, I think, is further going up because more companies say, we want to be part of the party that's now going on. In 1918 to 20, there was the big flu epidemic. And big flu epidemic had 50 million estimate, 50 million deaths all around the world. It was a big contributor to the end of World War I, by the way. So world really suffered from this flu epidemic. What came after that? The Roaring '20s. So I'm looking forward to our Roaring '20s too. And if you want to let it really roar, you need project business. If you try to do it all internally, it will not really roar. Yeah. So I think it will rather accelerate that, but I don't have the numbers for that.
All right. Thank you very much, Oliver. Moving on to the solution then. Thank you.
I have one solution here with me that helps bringing a project out of a crisis. We have many more. While some of them try to avoid that projects run into crisis. But if it's already in the crisis, we need to help people in such a situation as well. And something that can sometimes, most of the times, help, not in all situations. There are limitations for everything you do. This is benefit engineering. Benefit engineering stands in contrast to cost engineering. Every project manager knows what cost engineering is. It is a nicer word for cost cutting. We have a problem with the project. We don't get enough money from the customer. So we have to save some money, ideally at some places where the customer may not immediately notice that. Cost engineering has some limitations. One limitation is you don't want a frustrated customer. Another limitation is the contract. You don't want to be, hopefully, in a breach of contract situation. A third limitation may be law. Some of the things you do, you're required to do this by law. You cannot just strip down things and run into a breach of law situation. So there are some limitations. Why not thinking the other direction? The sky is open in the other direction. Instead of cutting costs, increasing benefits for the customer. In order to use this, it is intelligent change requests, highly intelligent change requests. In order to do that, we have first to understand our own problems. One problem may be a lack of profitability. A much more burning problem may be a lack of liquidity. We are running out of liquid money. If you don't have liquid money, you cannot make the customer happy anymore. You don't have the resources to make the customer happy. So this could be a second thing. A third big thing that I see very often is deadlines. There is a deadline and it can cause us a lot of troubles. We would like the customer to rethink the deadline. So there may be some other things, but these are the most common things that I see: profitability, liquidity, and deadlines. This is our problem as a contractor. We have a financial or a scheduling problem here. We have to understand this. Then the next thing we have to understand is the customer side. The customer has needs, wishes, wants. That's the positive side. Needs is what the customer must do. There may be a law somewhere, and the customer is maybe even not aware that they're just breaching a law, breaking a law. But someone may tell government agencies, hey, look what my former employer has been doing here. And you run into troubles, maybe without knowing it. Wishes and wants, this is what they really want and what they wish, and their risks and problems. They may have difficulties in their own organization that they are not aware of, or they are aware of, but didn't find the time to address that. And the whole day, management has a bad feeling about that something could go wrong. Those people at Boeing with the 737 MAX who are accountable and responsible for the faulty MCAS, for this faulty system that brought 2 aircraft down, they must have known what they did. And I'm pretty sure they had over months a very bad feeling about themselves. What may happen one day? And then it happened, and it happened twice. So, but it was predictable. It was not a surprise what was there. My major customer of the last couple of years was Airbus. And we talked about these things before they happened already. How can Boeing do that? Oh, how can government agencies accept that? How can they approve that? My statement was they never approved that. This was self-approved. Boeing approved it by themselves. And oh, that's not possible, Oliver. They can't do that. This is what happened. They approved it for themselves. The agencies allowed them to approve that by themselves, and they cut cost there. Assess own strength. That's the next thing. Where are we strong? Where can we help the customer? Where can we help them better meet their needs, their wishes, their wants, avoid risks, avoid problems, or get out of problems? And then we have to do a little cost-benefit analysis for ourselves. We don't want to make a proposal here where we come out poorer than we went in, and where we don't have the other things that we hope for, like earlier payments, like new deadlines also. So we have to understand what we need, what we are strong at, and then we can make a recommendation to the customer. We define a solution, propose it to the customer, and we have to sell it to the customer here. That's an interesting thing. Project managers as salespeople, can you think of that? We need that. We need that really. Yeah. And then the last thing is the solution must be implemented if the customer accepts it. We have to be very careful here. This can backfire. If you prepare the wrong thing, the customer may have the feeling that you're going to rip them off. So you have to be careful what you're doing. You have to have a fine sensitivity for the customer. On the other hand, it was never.
I can confirm that, Oliver. From my perspective, we used to work with a contractor about 3 years ago, and they came back to us with a new idea, and 2 days after they presented a new idea, we cut ties with them, because that new idea was such a different approach that was unexpected and unwanted and truly against our wishes, that we decided we can't work with you anymore. You know, that kind of an approach was completely wrong and uncalled for. So we cut ties with them. So it's a really thing. We got another question that came up here from Evenso. In an agile environment, how do you handle a situation where the customer's new needs become too risky for your organization? Are you going to be addressing that, or?
Maybe after my story on benefit engineering.
All right, we'll bring that back up then. Thank you.
I have something on that. Yeah, I have something on that. Benefit engineering was never easier than today. I think there's a risk in that. Good that you mentioned that. The risk is linked with, do you know your customer well enough? In your case, the contractor did not know you well enough, so they were not aware how this can backfire. They should have been a bit more careful here, because you don't want it to backfire. You want it to help you and bring you, either turn the existing business into better business or bring you some new business, so that you're not making losses with the customer, and the layouts that you bring for the customer can be reduced again. What makes it easy? What makes it easy is on customer side that management attention has become the scarcest of all resources. The PMBOK guide, unfortunately, does not see things like management attention as resources. The PMBOK guide is in a very old-fashioned understanding here, saying there are 3 types of resources: people, equipment, and material, and that's it. It was more up to date, I think, in earlier versions. This was really a disappointment when I saw that first. My understanding of resources is a lot of things can be resources. Money available can be a resource for us. Patents can be resources, and many more things. Here, it is management attention, and the most valuable resource of all is management attention. If you have management attention in your project, I cannot guarantee that you will have people and money and equipment and whatever you need. But if you have no management attention, you will lack people, you will lack money, you will lack equipment and everything else, because you don't have the management attention that helps you have this available for your project. And management attention as a scarce resource is really overwhelmed today by requirements from reality. You see this here again. I have a long list here. In the past, poorly informed customers, they didn't know very much about your product and your competitors and so on. And there were not so many competitors around. Yeah? Employees mostly doing well-defined manual work. I'll just go back here. You see this boss here with the ladies and the background, a subordinate man working obviously for him. And you see the atmosphere in this company. This was quite normal at times. And by the way, language was different by that time. This boss was allowed to speak in a sexist way with people, in a racist way with people. No one cared about that. It's good that this has changed. Please don't misunderstand me. I think it's a good change that we see here, but it means for a manager, you have to take care of the words that you are using. You have to take care of the things that you are doing. So you have to pay attention to many more things than in the past. Yeah? An ever-changing environment, disruptive forces. COVID is a good example for that. The requirement for adaptiveness and agility is another one. And many other things here. You have so many things that you have to take care. And you don't have 50 people around to do the work for you. You have to do a lot of that alone. As a manager, you have to work with a computer. 50 years ago, there were computers and there were managers, and they didn't have anything to do with each other. Oh, there was this question about the agile environment. Yes, I had such a situation with a customer where the company was doing a software development project for a customer, and the basis was the Agile Manifesto. The Agile Manifesto says we welcome change and we do not renegotiate. At least this is how it was interpreted. It's not 100% correct, but that's how they used that thing. And the project manager was someone who was happy to implement one change after the other and one. It was a fixed price project. The idea is, one of the Scrum guys just said about that, money for nothing and change for free. Money for nothing, no problem, but change for free. There was soon so much change that this project ran into a loss-making project. And by the way, a small company, this was their one big project that they were in, and it was really jeopardizing the future of the entire organization and the existence of this organization. And I talked with the project manager. By the way, in a group environment, nothing was secret in there. He talked openly about that. And I said, if you go on like that, accepting change after change after change, this was not in the calculation. The company will go bankrupt. That's your employer. I don't care. If I lose the job here, I will easily find a job somewhere else. Zero solidarity with the organization, zero loyalty with the own organization. And I think it was good for him that I was not his boss at that moment. But I talked with his boss, and he said, yes, that's exactly the problem. That's why he called me. And I said, he should have told me earlier, then I would have talked differently with that guy. So in our 4 Eyes meeting, I asked him, okay, is there some kind of deadline in this project? Yes, there is a deadline in the project, a legal deadline, by the way. This project was against a legal deadline and legal requirements. So whose deadline is it? Is it the customer's deadline or is it your deadline? It's the customer's deadline. The customer has to have a finished solution at a certain point of time, not more that far away. And I recommended him to go the way to tell the customer, we are happy to accept all your change requests and new ideas. They came up with new ideas all the time. And we are happy for that all, but we have a problem, dear customer. We will not be able to meet the deadline if you go on like that. What do you think of a solution that we take the project as it is and finish it as it is? We collect all your ideas, put them into a backlog. And when this project has been finished, then we start a new project to work down your backlog and to do all those things that you would love to see in advance. And by the way, do this on a time and material based, T&M based, and no more on a fixed price base, so that the customer is free to come with any changes they like. And they actually did that, and it was quite successful. They could no more turn around this project. This project was a loss, but some of the loss they could recover with the follow-up time and material project, and the customer was absolutely happy with that, because the most important thing for the customer were not these 1,000 little change requests. The most important thing was the law that said you have to have a solution in place by next year, I don't know, March or so, and they could guarantee the March. So the customer was absolutely happy about that. And it's a form of benefit engineering, maybe reverse benefit engineering here. You reduce the benefit for the moment, but make a new project out of that. And the company, last time I checked, is still alive. They had some massive financial damages, but they could survive that. And I have no idea what they made with the project manager. My recommendation would have been fire that guy. Sorry.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll remove the question from Evenzo again. And now back to the...
Just a question, Evenzo, did this answer your question? Was this something that you found helpful?
All right. I will bring up his response in the chat once we get it.
Okay. Can I go on, or?
Oh, yes, please, do go on. Do go on.
Sorry.
Yes. We'll just wait until he starts typing.
Good. We are back to Clara, and she said, learning by trial and error, that's not a good way. We have to learn by professional qualification. I have to learn it, and other people, of course, as well in this business. Trial and error is too expensive for that. What they made was a decision to formalize qualification for their project managers. with seminars, consulting. By the way, in my story, there is a consultant there. In reality, you will have difficulties to find consultants who know how to do that. Coaching, mentoring. I do some coaching and mentoring as well. And of course, with literature, we don't have too much here, unfortunately. We are really scarce. This is very thin here, what we can use here. We don't have many people here. But anyway, if someone comes, we still have some capacity free. And at the Project Business Foundation, we're building this at the moment. Our number one topic is not addressing the practitioner. It was addressing educators in this field. And we already have some educators where we are happy we can send them to customers. They are rather educators, rather trainers than consultants or coaches, but we have people for that, and I am available to some degree of course, as well. So we can do something here for people. We can bring you people who can help you in that. By the way, another thing that we do is we have events with the customer organizations, where we do audits. For instance, we audit contractors. Or what we do is project business healing days, where we bring customer and several contractors together in a one-day workshop and let them talk about the things that don't go well, the impediments against the successful project, and then develop a solution together. And there is a person in the meeting as a facilitator to make sure that it doesn't end as a brawl, but that it comes out with a solution, and it works very well. It's astonishing how much you can do as an outsider. Another thing that is important in our understanding is to develop a mission success first approach over the entire project. It means we want to do this together. We have a customer, contractor, subcontractor, and so on, and they all have to work together here. This has some cornerstones to develop this mission success. One thing is they have to work in good faith. Companies, people who don't work in good faith, who don't have a record and understanding what this means, are not welcome in the project. Selecting project partners here is a very important step. Maybe it's the key step of all. There are certain companies, certain people you don't want to have in your project. Then completing over competing. So important for us. We don't want to have struggles and quarrels and all these things in the project. We want to come together and make something big. And mutual respect of project participants' business interests. As a contractor, I have to respect the interests of the customer and vice versa. And as a contractor, I also have to respect the business interests of other contractors, because we are together in the same project. So we all have our place in there. I hope so, at least. This is what we want to achieve as contractors. So, and another thing, and I think that's a very, very important help, project managers in this field should have a contact number. There should be someone they can call. I wouldn't say day and night, but during normal times. If they have a problem, this is the person who can help them resolve the problem. If they have a question, that's the person who can answer the question or tell them where to find the answer. Helps them in their day-by-day business, because these are new challenges and so many different things come together. Law, contract, business relations, and so on. People take some time to learn that, and during that time, it's a good idea to have someone who can help. And someone, when you ask, yep, are we going for mission success first? Someone who responds, yeah, mission success first.
Business.org, that is a very important hyperlink to know. Yep. And you skipped a little bit quickly over the previous slide there about questions, because not questions, but confirmation from Evenso. Yes, I think you answered the question well. Good example with applicable principles in different circumstances, being fair, honest, realistic, analyzing risks at all times. All right. And for those of you who are live, the link to projectbusiness.org is now in the chat box for you. We do have one final question here that we can bring in from Santiago Sanchez. Is there, if there are extra payments to those projected, how can they be handled with the internal client, the person who creates the budget based on the scope external client uses? So what if more, I believe if I translate this correctly, is what if we need more money to pay for things? Would that be a good translation of what I'm understanding here?
I think that's what Santiago means.
Yeah.
First of all, maybe client is not as bad as customer, but often you hear this term internal customer. I think there is no such thing as an internal customer, and I think there's also not such a thing as an internal client. Inside the organization, we are colleagues. Inside the organizations, we have profit centers. We have cost centers, no profit centers. There are no such things as profit centers inside the organization, because when one department pays someone to the other department, when someone internal to the organization pays something to a project over the internal charging, it all stays in the organization. There is no money going out. There is no money coming in. If you're on customer side and you hire external contractors, this is really money going out. It makes the organization poorer unless you get some delivery back, which has enough value to make it richer again. On the contractor side, we expect money from an external client. There is no money coming into the organization from internal departments, from other departments. So I would recommend to use the term client and customer, which is, in my understanding, almost synonymous. I would use this only for external people. Internally, I love to talk of a requester, or when we do a customer project and someone internally mandates that, then this is on contractor side, the sponsor, the contractor side sponsor. There may be another sponsor on the client side as well. So we have someone who mandates us to do the project. And if we run into difficulties that we need extra money for our project, if the budget is not enough, then of course this internal sponsor, our contractor side sponsor, is the first escalation channel that we use here. We have to talk with our sponsor and say, hey, we have a problem here. It's not enough money. What are we going to do with that? So this is our first contact inside the organization. By the way, that's the same as an internal project. Your first escalation contact should always be your sponsor. That's why it's good to have a project charter, so you know who that is. And the sponsor knows that he or she is the sponsor. Also important that they know that. Yeah. So this is your very first escalation channel, and then talk with them about the problem, and maybe then discuss things like benefit engineering, or there may be other solutions as well. Maybe your sponsor goes golfing with a customer representative and they sort this out at golf. Also, they have options that you don't have as a project manager. But this is the first channel. That's the first escalation channel that I would recommend at all times. You are not a magician. You're not a wizard. You're not a magician. You're a project manager. You can do what is possible and what is realistic. And at the moment that this is no more possible, no more realistic, the organization needs a way to process that. I hope this answers the question.
I think so. I think so. It does. It does for me. Would you mind bringing back the page with the links, please? Because we have this comment here from Carol. She said, "I'm so excited to see all the hyperlinks. Thank you. You are speaking to my passion of encouraging, empowering, and educating as a means to build synergy, opportunity, and innovation with the field of project management." There we go, Caroline. Here are all the links once again for you. And I think at this time we don't have any further questions here coming up in the chat boxes. So I want to take a moment to thank you very much for being here, Oliver, today. This has been an absolutely stunning presentation. It's incredible how you handled all the questions and the comments that we've had from our customers. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that. All right.
It was a big pleasure and an honor to be here with you, Cornelius.
Of course. The honor is ours. Thank you so much. All right. And now let us bring everything to close here. As always, please visit pm-podcast.com for show notes, transcripts, PDU information. And if you want to get in touch with us, then our email address is info@pm-podcast.com. And finally, there we go. And finally, we have this meme here with Andy Dwyer from the Parks and Recreation, Chris Pratt, the actor, who says, "I don't know if my project is profitable, but at this point, I'm too afraid to ask." And with that, thank you everybody once again for being here, and until next time.